Arsenal, where are the signings? Now, I know in life and football is no different. You shouldn't look at what other people have. You shouldn't focus on what other people are doing. You know, if you focus on other people's rice cooking on the pot, you may end up burning your own. I do believe Mikel Arteta and Edu and those in charge of making transfer decisions at Arsenal will get things done. But I'm getting a bit worried. Now, fortunately for us Arsenal fans, we're not the decision makers. But, you know, Nico Williams doesn't appear that it's happening. Pedro Neto will get into it, going to Chelsea. You know, so what are we going to do, whether it's a winger, a striker, or both? And definitely where Merino and central midfield is concerned, where are the signings? Let's get them in, because the season is kicking off next week. A man said last week. Next week, obviously, it's lovely to have Calafiori. We do have some great existing options. Obviously, where some teams are concerned versus Arsenal, they need to make more drastic changes and wholesale measures. But in terms of moving the needle and getting us closer to Manchester City and going from flirting with potential titles to actually making it a reality, having a bigger squad and having some difference makers, having some ceiling raisers, having some different options and variety wouldn't go amiss, people. So let's get straight into everything. If you give me a second, I'll share my screen. As you know, we're still linked with Gyökeres. Locatelli links have re-emerged, people. Osman's still there on the background, and, you know, and all of the other stuff. So if you allow me to share my screen, we'll get straight into things. Now, Pedro Neto. Now, again, Romano, The Athletic have all covered it. It seems like Chelsea will be signing him for 60 million euros. He's set to have a medical and sign a 6-year deal with an option of a 7th. Now, Neto's a player we've had an interest in. Again, it does feel like if we wanted to go for Neto, we would have made a bid and we probably could have presented a great project to him similar to Chelsea. For whatever reason, that hasn't come to anything. The only question marks is over Pedro Neto for the last few years, or the last 5 years, is how many games he's played over a season and his durability and his fitness and injury. So again, with Nico Williams not being a thing, with Pedro Neto clearly not happening, it does beg the question, where do Arsenal go from here, people? Which I don't know. There's plenty of, you know, lesser household names. Do you go for a Bakayoko? Do you go for that lad at Sociedad? And there's something who The Athletic said we had an interest in January. Do we go for, you know, even Mikhail Mudryk? Some Arsenal fans are saying, do you know what? Mikel Arteta might as well go back in for him. Surely his future is subject to speculation at Chelsea and he might struggle for game time. Mine would be Kudus if I could, and we could go back to West Ham because he can play in a bunch of roles. But let me know your thoughts on that. Again, Pedro Neto was signed for Chelsea, or in the process of doing that. They've agreed a deal. Would anyone take Wilfried Zaha? Apparently, Leicester are working on a deal to bring him on loan from Galatasaray. Crystal Palace were linked with him. He was linked with Arsenal going back to the days of Nicolas Pepe. Now, I'm not keen on Zaha, but to remain impartial, you know, he does have Premier League experience. He is experienced. Again, if you take him on loan and undertake some of his wages, again, we're not signing him permanently, so we've kind of got a get out of jail clause. Now, for me, I think we should stay away from Zaha. Quality player. Again, people, fantastic player, but yeah, I don't think we'll go for him. And surely with potentially Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah, as well as Smith Rowe leaving, surely another attacker comes to the club. God forbid, but if Gabriel Jesus picks up an injury, to have Trossard, Martinelli, Bukayo Saka, and Kai Havertz, again, it can work, but over a 38-game calendar in a period in the Premier League, before you factor in all the other games, you're in issues. Nico Williams is still subject to speculation. 1 minute he's staying at Bilbao, then Barcelona have given up, then they're circling again. PSG and Arsenal, as well as Chelsea, appear to still be in the back burners. At this moment in time, we all know of his 58 million euros release clause. Whether anyone's going to trigger that is another thing, because you could trigger that, but the player has got to want to sign. And admittedly, it's getting a bit boring speaking about him. We're still linked with Gyökeres. Apparently, Gunners prepared to bid for Gyökeres, but gap in valuation remains. Football Transfers understands that Arsenal are willing to pay roughly 60 million euros, in brackets 52 million, for Gyökeres. I think that's fair. Isn't that the same fee as Lacazette? I think he ticks the boxes in, you know, he's played in a couple of different countries. He's obviously, in terms of his versatility without scoring, he's a good front man. He provides a physical option, can play the neat 1-2s, will drop into midfield, will do all the other assets away from scoring that Mikel Arteta wants. Of course, the season he's had last year, where he got an abnormal amount of goals and assists, and it's crazy, it wouldn't go amiss. And to have a striker that could get 20 league goals for us, would, on top of what we're doing, for me, it would be a step in the right direction. I'm not too sure if Sporting Lisbon want to let him go for 52 million. We all know the striker market isn't flushed with options, and he's an appreciating asset. Again, being interested in a player and actually getting it done is a completely different thing, people, because for all the Atletico, the Chelsea, the Arsenal, they might have been in direct talks, but nobody seems to have bidded. But if Sporting Lisbon are budging, if he is putting kind of pressure to leave your Sporting Lisbon and try a new experience, why not? The sharpshooter still tops the Gunners' shortlist of striker options for us, though a sizable gap in valuation remains. Sporting are no longer holding out for the Swedes' 100 million euros release clause to be paid in full, but still want at least around 70 million euros in bracket 60. Now, you'd imagine Arsenal have a transfer budget, but we've already forked out 27 million to make Raya's deal permanent. Calafiori's cost 40, 50 odd million euros. Again, there will be some outgoings. You've got Smith Rowe gone, got Tavares gone, got a fee for Lokonga, a couple of Haaland boys have gone. But where the Kiviors and these kind of players are concerned, and the ones existing, do these players have to leave before we go for these? Because for me, I think we'll get Merino done. I then think we'll focus on outgoings and then maybe a Gyökeres or an inside forward. Again, a winger and a striker for me is the only option. I'm prepared to maneuver with either. But if Sporting are budging on their asking price, that's great. Arsenal have no intention to match Gyökeres' release clause, so the fact that Sporting are open to club negotiations, that said is a boon. That said, there's been so far no concrete movement towards opening formal talks due to Arsenal's focus on Calafiori and Mikel Merino, which we've gone over already, people. Apparently we've agreed personal terms with Merino. Liverpool have been linked with Gyökeres, but it seems like they're not taking that any further. Team News and Ticks on Merino has said the move to Arsenal will be done next week. Romano has said many clubs tried to convince Zubimendi in the last couple of years, Barcelona, Bayern and Arsenal. Many clubs spoke to the player. He wasn't keen on the move. It's important to clarify that Arsenal were never negotiating for Zubimendi this summer. So again, maybe you rejected us once, we're gone away, and for him things have changed. Con Marble Halls again. I am not endorsing these ITKs. I'm not saying they don't know what they're talking about. It's just for the content. Arsenal have come to an agreement with Real Sociedad on a fee for the Spanish international Merino. Payment structures are now being determined. Once formalities complete, player will travel for medicals, which again, in short, dotting I's, crossing T's, making sure the move happens, and yeah, we'll see progress in that. Big up Reece Nelson. Apparently Steve McLaren is trying to get him to play for Jamaica. I'm not going to lie, I'm shameless. The minute he declares that he wants to play for Jamaica, he's the best Haaland talent we've ever had. Mikel Arteta has to build his team around him, and he's better than Bukayo Saka. I'm sorry, man, but I've got to be shameless in this life. Arsenal are continuing negotiations with Marseille over a deal for Nketiah. Apparently we're in talks with the French Giants over a season-long loan with an obligatory fee of 25 million euros, which I'm here for that. Apparently, personal terms are already in place for a 5-year deal. So again, 30 million euros for me, for Eddie, is decent money. And apparently, according to Ornstein, we're determined to sell him, people. Kivior, it seemed to have went quiet where he's concerned, and it still is, because at this moment in time, we don't know of any official bids offered. But apparently, Inter Milan are still interested in prizing him away, and they're still attentive to the offer. Apparently, Inter have started initial discussions with Arsenal regarding Kivior, and we'll have to see. Apparently, if the negotiations are not easy, Inter Milan advance its pawns, again Google Translate, while the young defender drags his spleen on the bench. I mean, pretty dramatic, but I guess that just means he's on the bench. Apparently Inter want a purchase option. You'd imagine Arsenal ideally want a permanent sell or with an obligation to buy. Although if he did go on loan and Inter Milan didn't take out a buy option and he played well and he could come back to the club and be a great option, great stuff, or put himself into the shop window of other clubs. We'll have to see how that goes, people. Wolves apparently are plotting a move for Aaron Ramsdale. So now Gary O'Neill's Wolves have been interested. They just got 60 odd million for Neto. So maybe they could meet Arsenal's asking price. He's also been linked with Southampton on loan, and apparently he's spoken to their manager, Russell Martin. We'll have to see on the Ramsdale front. You would imagine, people, he needs to keep it moving. He can't even get games in the Emirates Cup. Apparently Con Marble Halls has also said, people, that Leroy Sané is likely to leave this summer. Arsenal interested, also Chelsea. Player already has a place in London. Agent pushing to come to London, with both clubs exploring the option. Nothing further than that. I don't know. Chelsea are signing 1 million players, so they could still go for him. But you'd imagine with Neto and the 1 million players they've got, they'll leave him alone. The follow-up tweet said Arsenal still hold valid interest in Leroy Sané. Agent using Arsenal interest as leverage with buy-in. However, there is a strong possibility the player could move this summer. So the agent is trying to get his client the best deal, whether that's to stay at Bayern. It seems like they want to keep him. Of course, he's played in the Premier League before. He's worked with Mikel Arteta before. People said he's finished and he's rubbed out and all of this stuff. You obviously saw what he did against us in the Champions League. The only thing that I put pessimism on is there's so much speculation over Bayern Munich players. Kingsley Coleman, Leroy Sané, Joshua Kimmich, Alphonso Davies, Mazzouri, De Ligt, several Bayern Munich players. So we'll have to see, really. Would you lot take Sane? Let me know. And he's also said Arsenal keeping their eyes on the Victor Osimhen situation. If an opportunity arrives, they want to be in the conversation. Worth noting, the word opportunity lends itself to a deal that is seen as too good to turn down. In an ideal world, imagine Leroy Sane and Osimhen on top of what we've got already. We'd be laughing. I think it's either or. They'll both probably be on big wages. And what is too good of an offer to turn down? You're probably reliant on Napoli to really dramatically drop their asking price, really, considering he signed a new deal. And for Leroy Sane, you'd imagine Bayern Munich will make every effort to keeping him and convincing him to stay at the club. So we'll have to see. Locatelli, people who was once linked with Arsenal, it seems like his future at Juventus is subject to speculation. Bournemouth have been linked with a move for the 26-year-old. I don't imagine we're going to go for Locatelli with the Merino signing, but could it be worth spinning the block, people? Let me know your thoughts. I mean, I would have Locatelli if Merino is the one that Arsenal want, and we've moved on from attempting to get Locatelli, and obviously, as we saw with Romano Zubamendi, fair enough. But for me, where are the signings? Get that central midfielder in, get a winger and a striker, or one of the two, and we've got to step in the right direction, because again, the window isn't closed, and I'll reserve all judgment until it's closed. But I have to ask question: are we? And it's almost impossible to tell just via the playing staff. Are we stronger than we was last season with a week to go until the new campaign? The answer is evidently no. And Arteta did say a few months ago, we've got one of the smallest squads in the league. So you would imagine if he said that in February and then he came out months later and said we had discussions in March and April about what we want to do in the transfer window, there's your answer, really and truly. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts, people. Don't forget to follow my second channel. Let me know your thoughts. Drop a like, drop a comment. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know your thoughts. Rest assured, any talking points and news, I'll get vids out. But for now, peace.
Like